My advice to a young filmmaker is to make a movie every week.
Okay.
If you look at a can of Dr. Pepper, it'll say at the bottom, bottled by Coca-Cola. And so I wonder if certain states, like maybe the South.
Keurig owns Dr. Pepper.
Really?
Yeah.
Make films, no matter what anybody says, and you'll be a filmmaker.
Hello, and welcome to analysis number 2 of the second entry of my bi-weekly short film project. I have done it. I've done it a second time. It's complete. It's out there on YouTube. Please check it out. Just a quick recap of what this is. I'm challenging myself every 2 weeks to shoot, edit, and put out a short film of any length, of any kind, any type. The goal is to learn, to get better at camera tricks, and then to self-reflect and analyze what I've done, why I've done it, and what I would do differently. So for this week's entry, I came in with a number of goals. Namely, I wanted to evoke suspense through cinematography. I wanted to have dialogue, and I wanted to shoot coverage of that dialogue with multiple shots so I could edit together. And I wanted to do something interesting with sound design. Here we go. Another thing I wanted to do was add some more deliberate camera movement. So this week I went with the skateboard-based dolly shot. You'll see it at the beginning and end of the short film. So that was something new. I did a few pans, a few whip tilts, things like that to try to get more comfortable behind the camera as I free up the acting position to other people. In this case, my wonderful girlfriend, Kendalynn. Another thing I did differently this week was I created a storyboard and a script. So I wrote those out, planned every beat, planned every shot. I took some sample footage a couple nights before of different shots and angles I wanted, reflected on that, changed it for the actual night of shooting. So I'm trying to get a little more refined with how I plan things out and executing things according to a plan rather than just flying by the seat of my pants. So I think that did help a lot this week. So some quick stats about this week's short film. It took me 9 hours from taking the gear out to putting it back on the day of shooting to get everything shot. Editing took around 3 days on and off. I had 86 clips total shot, of which I used 29. This week I also leaned on a colleague, Cory Halterman, for the scoring. He did all the music as well as a lot of the sound effects, the creepy swells, the synthy things, the little subwoofer rattles. That was all Cory Halterman, so go check out his Instagram at morningjoe audio. And he's on Spotify as well as Morning Joe. We arrived on the day of shooting at 4 p.m., talked through the script, talked through the storyboard, and then used the storyboard as a bit of a shot list to decide which shots to go in what order on the day of shooting. So earlier in the night we started before the sun had fully gone down with some of the outside shots. So you'll see we've got some footage of leaves, some footage of a light pole. Anything that we were shooting of interest outside, we wanted enough natural light to expose those images. And then we moved on just chronologically each shot with the exception of some of the close-up stuff which we cut in later. So without further ado, let's get into the shot-by-shot breakdown. I got a few of these shots during the course of the shoot at various points of the night, just outside vibe shots. This is one of those examples. I just wanted to set the mood. It's spooky and windy outside and it's dark and you can't really see anything there. A little more involved with this shot. This is a dolly shot. We used my buddy Kaysen's skateboard on a table, our coffee table, to do these couple of dolly shots throughout. We've got 3 of them. So here's the first one. I wanted to start her centered and then focused on the window the entire dolly. We've got her and the blurry outline of her crutches. So I'm trying to tell you, this is the main character. She has crutches. She's not able to walk. And she's staring at this window. So the fridge is really getting loud here. Everything's getting loud. Wind is chiming in. And then it all cuts out for a brief moment. At first I had a cut to black here and then out. But I think it's a little eerie to cut all the sound out while you're still looking at this. One of my goals with this project was to do more camera moves, more camera pans, do a little more with the camera.
Hey!
So for these two shots, coming from the right side of the frame, I had Kaysen, my buddy, holding circular diffusion, one of those Amazon 5-in-1 reflector kits, holding that just out of frame to soften a 1x1 GVM LED panel, pretty much full blast, tuned to 2300. I wanted this part to look kind of yellowy. I think this living room vibe here is mostly lamp motivated. And then outside in this shot, I actually have a GVM LED panel. I think it was like 6,000 Kelvin or so, pushing more of the outside light into the door. I liked that contrast if she opens the door and all this bluish porch lighting comes in. Got 1 foot out the door, and then got a series of 3 shots, a lot of J and L cuts going on here. Everything's overlapping. I know this thing was going to be short, so I didn't want to spend too much time getting them to the table. I was like, hello, I'm here, we're drinking, and conversation. So we cut here to an unsponsored bottle of generic alcohol. Depending on if somebody ever pays me, I might reveal what is in this bottle. For those of you who are savvy with that kind of stuff, you could probably tell based on Nally. And then I do the same tilt here, which looking back, you can see that it is a little continuity of style and establishing patterns, or you can see that as I run out of ideas. What is this guy doing? These two are very yellowy. I'm leaning into the beer color with some LED panel lighting off from the side. Looking back, I probably would have done a little more backlight. It's kind of disappearing into the background here. But you can see it on my hand. I've got a 5600 tuned Godox 60 from the table. I'm establishing early in this scene that there's a light on over the table in the dining room. And then just jarring fridge light, which is just the fridge light. I didn't supplement at all. It's like, it's gross. It's supposed to be gross. I actually leaned into that in the color grade a little bit, made it a little more blue. Got 1 foot out the door, and then here comes Lynn to put her 2 cents in, because she's always got a chime. A J cut and an L cut here, because I start the audio from the conversation while this shot's lingering, and then the sound of this shot lingers into that conversation shot. So it's just a big overlap of sounds, and I fade in the dialogue, because I'm establishing we don't really care what this guy is talking about. Like, he's talking, he's throwing got 1 foot out the door, and then here comes Lynn to put her 2 cents in, because she's always got to chime in now. I've told you about Lynn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so ever since that last... Okay, so with this little sequence here, the first chunk of them being in conversation, I'll just go over the lighting and audio setup for this, so we can just assess it as a whole package, because it's pretty static. But I've got 3 different shots here. I've got the semi over the shoulder wide shot. It was supposed to be sort of a 2 shot, but the way they were facing, I didn't want to peer back into the rest of my house behind all this. I wanted the window to be in frame. I wanted to establish where they are in relation to that window from earlier. Godox 60L pointed up at the corner and bouncing off with just the reflector, just bouncing off that corner of the room. And that's just to mimic the overhead lighting. I liked it a little better than the actual overhead lighting. It just spilled everywhere and it was gross. So I was a little more controlled this way. I got a bit too much of it maybe on the curtain there, but not too much I could have done with the light power I had. I've got 2 over-the-shoulder shots here, one of me and one of Kendalynn. I wanted Kendalyn's to be more contrasting, darker, and deeper frame, so that's why I placed her here and I placed me here, because my shot, I tried to limit the spill on the back wall and still give some contrast. So this is a little unrealistic looking now that I look at it, because it is an overhead light and it's casting like no light on that back wall. I think it just felt right with the mood, but I'm not sure looking at it now if it looks natural or not. But and then back to Kendalyn's shot, she's got 1 lamp on here, and way back, you can see way back into the hall there, I had a lamp on in this laundry room back here just to add a little more background light, but I still wanted really contrasting foreground to background. It's almost like she's being interrogated, I think was my idea. I had the light and softbox right up on her face, kind of like I have it now with my face just right up on her, just slightly out of frame. Same with the microphone. I used 2 of the Rode M5 pencil condensers. Shot for coverage, shot everything with both angles. Both of these angles had both of us mic'd up. So I could use whichever audio from what take and stitch together a little easier, and it did help. I think if I could do this again, I would have added a backlight for her in this scene. Try to hide it where you see the fridge back there. And
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so ever since that last... Once she responds, everything comes out because she's not listening to what he's saying. She's trying desperately to be engaged. It's a boring story about work. She's obviously thinking about other things. You could see it in her performance, which I am very proud of her performance in this, I will say. It was very solid. She is not an actress, but she is now. So well done, Kendalynn. Everything swells in around my voice, which I do fade out over time. Ever since that last... This interaction needs alcohol to continue. It's painstaking. I got this all in one shot. I didn't like the movement I had between, and also I didn't fill them to the same level, regrettably. I'll show you that for some reason. Yeah, look at that. Not even close. I just chose to cover that up. Yeah, just getting us on with it. We don't care too much. I like the candle vibe here. Honestly, I also used that motivation to throw an LED panel off to the right, get some like softened, I think I used the diffuser if I could fit it, and get some softened, motivated, orangey light, just super dark and perhaps a bit too dark, but anyways. That just kept going off. So then we cut to a wide shot. This is the first time I show from outside. I have a couple of these. I wanted to be sparing with this from the outside shots because it would probably feel a little gimmicky if I overdid it, and I honestly might have overdone it, and it might be gimmicky. I do most of the wide shots from here on out like this, but for this I had that Godox light bouncing off the wall again, slightly out of frame to the right, for the motivated top light, and I think it looks pretty decent here. And then you can see the big shadow here on the right, and that's my LED panel with the 2300 shooting towards me to get that yellow light on the where I was pouring the drinks. So I wanted the continuity there of this was a yellowy looking area, and when you can see him leave frame, I think it's pretty convincing. Like it matches decently. It's a little darker in my shot, a little moodier, but it just kept going off, and it just took me out of it. But I'll probably just stream it in a couple months. So I've opened my shot up because my character's comfortable and calm and just talking about his day and talking about his experience. Her shot is I'm using my body to box her in, so we see even less her. It's I'm dominating the conversation, I'm dominating the frame. She's not really getting much of a word in. Enough of the story to know that it's some random story that goes nowhere. I did write the full story. It was about being at a movie that there was somebody on their phone the whole time and they wouldn't stop texting, and it took him out of the experience, but he'll just stream it. So I didn't think you needed that whole story, but there it is. We cut to a wide here of just Kendalynn, and I actually artificially extended this shot here, but this is just a wide shot where she's eerily framed. This is the original shot. This is the full frame. Yeah, so went to the source here, took the black level down by 0.3. You'll see if I reset it, there is a slight contrast between that and the black of the actual thing, and zoomed it out, so made it even more eerie. That was a suggestion from Josiah Grace. So thank you, Josiah. He has a videography company called Vitalize Media. Look it up if you're in the Nashville area, want some corporate videography action. He'll do your shit, and he'll do it good. He told me, lean into this. Like, your source, there's a little, you don't need that door over there. It's eerie how much negative space you have, and now lean into it, do more. So I was like, all right, I do it. I was very happy with that. I think that's cool. We can barely hear it, but he's asking her what's up with her, how you like in the new spot or whatever. And we linger on this for a while.
I saw that blue 4Runner again today. It followed me for 3 miles, and it turned off just before I got onto my street.
I mean, a lot of blue 4Runners in Nashville, though, right?
With tinted windows.
I mean, I've got tinted windows. You've got tinted windows. It's not that out of the ordinary.
And the same dent in the bumper.
It's probably...
This is the real conversation. This is where she goes, this is what I'm thinking about. He knows that she's been feeling paranoid, so it's like, here we go again kind of thought. But she can't help it. She has to share it. So I played around with using the cross shot here because I shot it. I switched to a reaction here of me as she's talking and back, but I took that out. I think I had it in there just to justify the fact that I shot all that coverage, but in the edit, I feel like it worked best to just stay on her the whole time. I turned that light in the laundry room off to add a little more darkness. Getting a little darker. It's getting later. I think this would be the time in the short film where you think there is somebody watching her. Then we cut to eerie leaves vibes. So we keep that wind sound going and we cut to another shot looking in the door of me leaving. So continuity error here. I noticed this, too lazy to reshoot it. I put the shirt back on and I had it off here. So you can assume that there was some time jump here, and I think that was the assumption, but if I were to reshoot it, I would change 2 things. It would be that shirt. I would have it on the chair as it was and grab it on the way out. And then there's a lamp back here that should have been on. So this is just me leaving. I don't care. We don't care what they're saying. I had this idea in my head of this is from the outside. You can tell he's going, I should get going. And she gets up to go like walk him to the door. He goes, no, don't worry about it. You know, you're hurt. You're fine. It's fine. I'm going to show myself out. She crutches up to the light. I added this shot then a couple nights later because I wanted to show that it was all practically motivated. And I realized I hadn't shown that actual fixture overhead on at any point. We just assume it's on. And I loved peeking through them like this and going from overexposed to underexposed. I had off to the side a diffused LED panel at 2300 again. Cut to this eerie street lamp outside. When we went outside, we just filmed a little bit of everything, just anything creepy. Close up of some leaves, setting the vibe. And then I cut black. So now she's in the living room, and I have a big diffusion, that 5-in-1 diffusion with LED light off to the right, and that's motivated by the lamp that's out there to the right that I forgot to turn on in that wide shot. So hopefully this makes sense looking at it. But once it's later at night, I'm just all yellowy, everything yellow. And I wanted the unlocked deadbolt and frame because that's what's next. So I pulled focus while dollying on the skateboard, which was very tough, and it took a lot of stabilization, and it still isn't quite stable. There's definitely some jumpiness a little bit. I think the idea here is she's worried about the front door. The guy's out back. If there's a guy there, who knows? It might just be she's paranoid, and that somebody's watching her, and maybe there's not. But if there is, he's definitely out there because that's where I've given you all the shots from. So I added this on the 2 nights later. This is my one shot showing that lamp and motivating it, motivating that lighting on the side. I give like 1 second of this. That negative space to the left and then the negative space between her and the lamp. I had that same LED panel with diffusion. Was standing outside in a tornado for this shot, I think, in some of the outside shots. It wasn't quite a tornado. It was a tornado watch, but it was very, very windy. So both of the deadbolts locking, there's so much shadow stuff going on, so I played around in the other ISO. And I did highlight recovery, which I kind of liked. That was my first time using that. You can see, perhaps, when it's disabled, the highlights are clipped a little bit there. And it brings them back really nicely. Just a one check. She finishes the dish, turns the light off, and then I just have that lamp motivated light over here. The same lamp turned pretty low because I did want it to go from overexposed to underexposed again. The credits, because I did do credits. This was a big step up for me in that regard as well. I did credits, so huzzah. But welcome, come one, come all, to the audio breakdown. I'm going to just give a quick overview of everything audio-wise that I've done for this project. I'm going to double-click on some aspects, going to show some of the secret sauce here, and then we'll move on. So first and foremost, on-location sound. So I got a fair bit of room tone, the outside. Anytime I have the camera outside or I'm focusing outside, I have that. I have the buzzing of the fish tank. I got a mic right up close behind the thing because it was inevitably loud, so I thought, why not lean into that? Raise some of that in post. And then we have the sound of the crackling fridge. So that's sort of my trio of room tones there. So the other location sounds I have fully. Any sound effect, I tried to record that on site. And then the most obvious, of course, is the dialogue, all recorded on site. I did not have to go ADR for this. So that was all overhead mics, the Rode M5, a pair of them for all the dialogue. So then we have the later recorded audio elements. First and foremost, I had Cory Halterman, Morning Joe Audio, help me out with that. He did the scoring. Yeah, and then when I start to try to build the tension again, out goes the soundtrack. I think that little montage of winding down just needed some music to carry it through. And then he did sound effects to accentuate all the swells, the suspense, etc. You get the point. So that was, for him, that was a combination of different synths, different plugins, weird effects that he had going on. He's a little guru of synthness, so that was him. As far as the sound editing, a quick overview of that. It's a lot of J cuts where the audio starts before you see. Yeah. Anyway, so ever since that last and then the L cut, obviously the inverse of that being just cutting audio and video not quite together to give like a little cohesion. I definitely experimented a lot with that. And then some effects here and there, especially when we get to the more suspenseful moments of dialogue. I'm doing things like low pass filtering on some of Cory's stuff.
I saw that blue 4Runner again today. It followed me for 3 miles and it turned off just before I got onto my street.
I mean, a lot of blue 4Runners in Nashville, though, right?
So you hear that there. That's just like a subwoofer rattle. I'm going to go ahead and expand quickly on a few moments here. So let's start from the beginning. I've got the trio of room tones outside, fridge, and fish tank, along with Cory's sound effects scoring with that opening swell. So I'll just let that play through and just take a listen here. everything is just swelling, just increasing in volume, like a crescendo of all, but I'm doing a little mixing and matching of the different room tones. We start heavy wind, and then that kind of takes a back seat to the room tone for a minute while those swell in, and Cory's sound effects are atmospheric. He's got an oscillating thing. There's that, the weird interference-y things that's all swelling, and then it cuts out. Just a little symphony of atmosphere to accentuate that. So the next moment here, my character is first talking. I'm fading that volume out and fading in room tone and to put her 2 cents in, because she's always got to chime in now. I've told you about Lynn, right?
Yeah.
So that moment there, the room tone crescendoing as my voice gets quieter and quieter. So here we have the final swell, and I'll just let this play through. This is our last little symphony of room tones and Cory's sound effects, and it's overall the loudest part of the film. This is our climax here, and I think it's mostly carried by the audio. And over the gap, we have little secret sauce, the breathing sound effects that I recorded myself, heavily breathing in my studio alone, which is normal to do. And then at the end, more of my breathing. So there you go. And then final sound, just score. I'm fading that up while the screen's black, and that carries us into credits. Definitely feel like I stepped up my game a little bit sound-wise with this film. There's a whole lot more going on than the last one. And big thanks again to Cory Halterman for doing the scoring, the creepy synthy sound effects, and adding his own little spin to everything. So that concludes the audio breakdown, and now we'll move on to our verdict. So in conclusion, there were a lot of things during this process that I was happy with, and then some that I wasn't as happy with. I think the positives, the dolly shots, I think worked very well. I liked the lamp aesthetic that I was getting. The later in night transition with the lighting in the scene, I think was very effective. And then I did benefit greatly from the coverage shot during the interview scene. That gave me some good editing room to go back and forth. Some of the negatives, there were cables everywhere during the shoot. It was very troubling to step over cables to get from shot to shot, and I just tangled myself in cables the entire shoot. So that was definitely an annoyance, and I think I could have done with a little better script writing. I wanted to be a little more natural with the script writing, and most of the lines were throwaway lines. Everyone, please feel free to let me know in the comments what you think and what you would do differently yourself and all of that good stuff. So overall, I did it. I made 2 of these things. They're done, they're out there. I'm not 100% happy with them, but I'm 100% happy with the fact that I did them. So I think we're gonna keep chugging along here. Don't know what I'm gonna do next, but once I figure it out, you'll see it. So thanks again for watching, and I hope you'll tune in again soon.